Hey guys, welcome back. Dr. T, living your best life here in the Philippines. Right now, currently I'm in Lapu-Lapu. And if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I've been living here in the Philippines for just under 4 months now. And I've mostly been here and throughout different areas in Bohol and done some traveling. And over the last 4 months, I've got to talk to lots and lots and lots of expats from all over the world. Several that have lived here, actually most that have lived here much longer than me. I've met some that have actually lived in the Philippines 4, 5, 6 years. So we just all kind of, talk and share stories. So most of this I'm getting from other sources and just kind of sharing crazy stories with guys throughout my travels. So I kind of wanted to pass this on to you. But I did another video on Filipina dating scams, and they're pretty inventive. This one is really common, and I've seen other channels talk about this. So the Filipina culture is very different than, let's say, I come from America. They're very family oriented here, and they take care of their families, and it's really common for all the kids to live at home until they get married. Even a lot of families, even after they get married, they all live in one house under the same roof. In America, that just doesn't happen. So having said that, the mindset here is very much to take care of the family. So a lot of people here, what they do, especially in the provinces, they move out of the province and they go work in, let's say, Cebu City, for example. And they live in these little tiny, they call them boarding homes. They're basically like, it would be like a 4-foot by 8-foot room with just a bed and basically, literally buried, almost like a jail cell type. I mean, nicer than that, but you get what I'm saying. For 5,000 pesos, for example, 4,000 pesos, which is about $80, 100 American, something like that. And they send the rest home to their parents, because the mindset here is the kids take care of their parents. It's not like I said, in cultures in America where I grew up, it's not like that. So that is the mindset here. But one of the things that a lot of Filipinos expect here when you're dating them, or if even dating, not even married, they expect their foreigner boyfriend to take care of their family. And call it a scam, whatever. I call it a scam personally, because there's a lot of different ways that they do it. And I've heard, like I said, lots of crazy stories from foreigners. Some of them are just downright flat out scamming. I've heard stories of, their families here are really big. So it's very common for them to have 6, 8, sometimes more siblings, right? And then add in cousins and aunts, etc. on top of that. So they have these giant 20 members in their family. So someone always needs something, because this country, for the most part, probably 80-90% of the people in the Philippines are extremely poor. And by that, I mean living on 400 pesos a day is the average. That's the basically minimum wage here. Depending on what province and what area you are in the Philippines, it can be from 400 to 500 pesos a day, which is about 8 to 10 US dollars per day. So you got to keep that in mind. Very, very, very poor. And they live in very poor, modest conditions. There's some rich people here, of course, but not like you're used to in Western countries. So the mindset here is very much the kids take care of the parents and family members. It's really common here also for family members to borrow money from one another. By borrow, I mean they never pay it back, because, like I said, it's a very poor country. So it's not like they're ever going to be in surplus of money to pay back a loan. So this is what happens to a lot of foreigners. You're dating a Filipina, and then they always have some sort of an emergency, because, like I said, for the most part, most of them are very poor. They'll come to you and say, my mom doesn't have any money this month for rent. Could she borrow 5,000 pesos? And to the average Westerner, right, you're thinking 5,000 pesos, it's less than $100, sure, I can give your mom money and she's going to pay me back, right? You're never getting that money back. Just being brutally honest up front. It's not a loan, it's a gift. So I've never heard one person ever, a foreigner, give money to a Filipino person and they actually get it back. That maybe it does happen. I'm not bashing Filipinos, but I'm just saying that the stories I've heard, right? So know that up front. It's not a loan, it's a gift. You're never getting that back. So, and then it becomes, you just open the doors the way I look at it, right? They know you're willing to give it, right? So next month, guess what's going to happen? Oh, my dad doesn't have any money, our car broke down, my brother's sick, my aunt's sick, my cousin's in the hospital. I've heard all kinds of scams. People are always in motorcycle accidents. I heard one guy was telling me a girl he was so-called dating was showing her pictures of some guy in the hospital with, like, he's laid up in the bed with a cast on his leg, and it was her brother in the hospital. And he takes her phone and Google's, goes to her images, and she was downloading Google Images. It turned out it wasn't even a real, it was a scam to try and get money. And she was crying and begging him, please, he's in the hospital. We don't have any money for the medical bills. Could you just give us 10,000 pesos? And, you know, we have to make sure that he gets taken care of. And to the average foreigner, right, you're thinking, man, that sounds terrible. And sometimes you really sympathize for these people because, like I said, a lot of them are living in really poverty environments. So to the average American or Westerner, right, you're thinking, oh, well, whatever. I can give your family a little bit of money in an emergency. And the problem is there's always an emergency. They rarely have enough money to sustain themselves. Again, not all. One of the other scams is, I heard one guy was talking about a girl he was dating, and she said, I would expect if I was dating a foreigner that you would help my family. So he and her kind of get into a disagreement about this, and he said, no, that's not really the way our culture in America works. We don't really support people's families. That's not something we do. So they kind of have this cultural difference discussion. And she said, well, I'm not saying every month you have to give them money. She said, but what I mean is in case of emergency. And he and I were talking, and he said, well, I can understand that, right? In the case of an emergency. I said, yeah, but the problem is what you're not getting is there's always going to be an emergency. Every month, every couple weeks is going to be an emergency. It's always going to be somebody doesn't have money. Somebody can't pay their rent. Somebody can't buy food. Somebody's sick. Somebody's in the hospital. Someone needs clothes. And once you open that door, it is wide open. I have a friend of mine who did something very similar to that. And then guess what? He had her friends coming to him and saying, could I borrow money? Not even the girl he was dating and not even her family members, but her friends. Because guess what? Then she tells her friends and kind of brags about it and says, oh, my foreigner boyfriend gave my family 10,000 pesos this month. Oh, really? Huh. That sounds pretty good. Let me get some of that, right? So then they're coming over and they're asking you for money. He had that happen several times, actually. I had it happen here. A guy that I barely know gave me some sob story and wanted to borrow money. It's not, like I said, you're not lending money. It's a gift here. So I personally wouldn't do it. My dating advice for foreigners coming to the Philippines is anytime, I got this advice from another, he was a German guy that was married to a Filipina, and I met them actually in America just by some freak chance. And we got to become friends, and they go back and forth. They spend half the year in the Philippines and half the year in the US. So, and I got to talking to them, and her advice to me back in America before I got here was, and she's a Filipina. She said, my advice to you would be, if you're dating a girl and they mention anything about money in the first 6 months, dump them. And that's the advice I want to pass on to you. I mean, anything. Any, can I borrow money? This is an emergency. This happened. I need money for college is the other big scam here. Oh, I can't afford to pay my tuition this month or my books. The other one, I talked about this in other videos, is that they over exaggerate the cost of things because they think that we don't know what things cost here. I need money for the buses. Can I have 1,000 pesos? The buses are like 20 pesos, right? So there's all sorts of ways they do it. And her thought was, honestly, they try to fish you for information, right? They want to know how much money you're making. Are you on Social Security? They know about that here. Do you have a pension? If so, how much? Are you working? What kind of work do you do? And they try to fish you for information, right? So her advice to me was, any mention of any of that, just get rid of them. They're looking for money. You want a girl that doesn't even think about that. Sure, she might know that she has a foreigner boyfriend, and of course you probably have more money than the average Filipino guy, right? They're not stupid. But if they're fishing you for information, my advice is, I happen to agree with her. I talked to enough foreigners here. And we all, guys that have been here for a long time, we all kind of talk about this and say, you know when you have a good one. When you have a good Filipina girlfriend, she's not asking you for money. She's not asking you for money for her friends, for her family, for emergencies, none of that. A good Filipina girlfriend doesn't even ask for money for transportation. You can give it to them because, you know, like I said, the wages here are so low. But you just kind of have to have your radar out, and don't get into a cycle of feeling bad for somebody where you're giving someone 5,000 pesos a month. I talked to one foreigner guy here. He's married to a Filipina, and he literally supports her family, and he gives them money every single month for expenses. And I think he's crazy. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but whatever. If it's your money, obviously blow it how you want to, right? But just be aware, a lot of people, and I've heard this from a lot of Filipina people, girls have told me specifically, their family tells them, you need to find a foreigner boyfriend so he could support everybody. So let that sink in for a minute. They're telling, not everybody, right? But they're being told by their family members, get a foreigner boyfriend because he can support everybody. So you're being taken advantage of. If you're giving somebody money, you're giving family money every single month, they're just taking advantage of you. And maybe they're nice people, right? And I'm sure they need the money. Of course they need the money, and they might be super nice people. And maybe you're just generous and you don't care about pissing away 500 US dollars or 300 American dollars a month, something like whatever you're giving them. But personally, I wouldn't do it. I would steer away from those girls, would be my advice. And yeah, any mention of money or supporting family members, I just wouldn't do it. I made that hard line in the sand of, that ain't ever happening. My advice, honestly, is pretend you're broke. I don't talk about money. I sure as hell don't talk about how much I make. No one has the slightest idea if I'm rich, poor, whatever. I don't dress fancy. I don't wear jewelry or flaunt my money. I never talk about money, would be my advice. Don't let these people know how much money you have or don't have. And honestly, just play like you're kind of broke. Hey, I'd like to do that, but I don't have the money this month, right? There's no shame in saying that. Hey, I'm on a very strict budget, is what I tell people. I have money to do things, but I don't have a lot of free money. That's kind of what I told the guy who was asking to borrow money from me, which wanted a gift. Because again, I know another guy, he did that and let a guy borrow money, and guess what? He never got it back. And then the next month he asked him to borrow more money. And again, the question was, well, you never paid me back the 5,000 pesos I gave you last month. Now you want more money. How are you going to pay back more money when you couldn't pay back the first amount that I gave you? So yeah, don't get in that habit. So I hope that helps. And just, you gotta really be smart when you come here. Honestly, you really do, because some of these girls are pretty slick with it. And a lot of foreigners fall for it hook, line, and sinker. And these girls know the scam. There's a lot of great people here, and I met a good one, thankfully, and that's not even a concern for me. So they're out there, but you just got to kind of have to do your homework and have your radar up. So I hope that helps. All right, see you guys.